Nathaniel, let's go back in time, man. Tell us, dude, who were you as a kid? Who was Nathaniel as a kid?
The origin story, huh?
Yeah, man. Like,
Superhero. We all have a superhero origin story. My parents were boomers, but they were teachers of transcendental meditation. So I was born in Canada, and then they moved us as I was turning 4 to Fairfield, Iowa, which is a town that has about 10,000 people in it in the middle of the cornfields. But 3 of the 10,000 people practice meditation. So we were really raised in one of these human potential experiments where, they had 2 golden geodesic domes, one for men, one for women, and they meditated together before and after work. We went to school, consciousness-based education. So we had meditation, yoga, Bhagavad Gita, principles of Eastern spirituality. And, I'm really grateful for that, to have that kind of an upbringing. We're still, everyone had their own religion, whatever that was. So no requirement there. It wasn't a cult as such. So I also grew up with Judaism and going to Sunday school. And so it was a very interfaith, interspiritual kind of upbringing.
wow.
And got into martial arts as well. Of course, my first love was Aikido, which to this day is still a very powerful metaphor for conflict resolution and self-transformation, looking in the mirror. The enemy is within. And we're going to talk about that today, I have a feeling.
How can we not?
That darn mirror, I'll tell you.
Dude.
And that was the beginning.
That's fascinating, man. I think it explains why so many times when I'm on the phone with you, I'm like, oh, dude, Nathaniel's been working on this his whole life. It doesn't.
My mother would say, like, in the womb. Yeah, meditating in the womb.
It doesn't feel like you went through a coaching program early 2020 and I became your first client in 2021. It feels like this is that's a comment that I have internally when I work with you, is like the wisdom is deep. You're not just reciting things from a memorized handout and I'm just repeating it back to John. It's like it's coming from this place of where I remember learning from people before. It's like you can get it intellectually, but when you get it in your body, it changes everything. And that's where you are, right? It just feels like you've practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Bruce Lee, of course, Bruce Lee is one of my big heroes too.
I had to throw it out there for the martial arts, man. That's cool.
I appreciate you saying that. Nothing can take the place of practice.
Yeah.
That's the pathway. Yeah.
When did this become a profession for you? When did you decide to make this your life's work professionally?
The moment I had told one of my friends for the 3rd or 4th or 5th time that he should be a coach, he turned around and looked at me and said, "Why don't you be a coach?"
Yeah.
And I think
how fitting to the work you do.
Yeah. And being, young in martial arts, I was an instructor in Aikido at 18. And then I went and lived in a dojo for 2 years, which you'll do for a month, maybe, if you're crazy, in the Japanese tradition. And then I did kind of go the Bruce Lee route of cross training and mixed martial arts and all of that eventually. But that's really what the foundation was for me to be a coach. It's kind of a cliche, the life coaching thing. It's like, I don't know what to do with my life, so let me tell you what to do with yours. Sure. But really the foundation was in a lot of practice in martial arts and being an instructor in that sense, and concentrated leadership development when you're running a live-in student program and people are living together. As we all know, as fathers of kids who have partners, it's like that's a whole other level challenge when you're dealing with interpersonal dynamics in a context like that. So that really was as much my background as just choosing to be a life coach, and add to that the relationship between the meditation and the martial arts, and the on the mat and the off the mat. Yeah. So that's really what was behind it.
Did you ever get into a fight when you were a kid?
I was a very sensitive kid until my friends started fighting. And then I became this kind of parental father figure and would break up their fights. And then I'd say, like, don't ever get violent again in my presence. And they'd say, yes, sir. to me, like after being very kind of kind and conflict averse, I had a kind of the social justice warrior kind of thing in the best sense of the term, like a lack of tolerance for bullying or injustice or ego. So that was present
Oh,
all along, no matter how sensitive I was
that's interesting.
as a kid. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. When did you find Byron Katie along in your development?
As we say, the work found me. I studied classical piano, and my teacher at the time was Oberlin Juilliard trained guy, Paul Jones. He turned me on both to integral theory, which is Ken Wilber's approach, and he came in one day talking about Byron Katie. Now, Byron Katie had visited Fairfield because it's such a spiritual town. It draws all kinds of spiritual teachers. When I was a teenager, my mother went to see her. I didn't know about that then. My mother had a very profound experience with her. And it wasn't until I was actually moving to Texas after grad school, as I was finishing grad school, to a job as an executive coach with the Stegan Leadership Academy, who many of your listeners may know about.
That's right.
They have the one-year integral leadership program based out of Dallas. And I moved to
Darius
Austin
talks about
first.
that.
Darius is definitely a proponent and a graduate, and brought a lot of their stuff into his organization with Forum. And so can you ask the question again?
Yeah, well, how the work found you, I suppose.
How the work
right?
found me. That's right.
Yeah.
So the year, thank you for getting me back on track. So the year that I moved to Texas, Katie happened to be going to Texas for a workshop. And I had all kinds of stuff I wanted to tell her about how I'd found her book there's college in Ashby in Berkeley. There's that spiritual bookstore. Actually, this is a good story to tell first. I picked up her book, Loving What Is. I looked at the back of it. I looked at the 4 questions and turnarounds, which is the work. The turnarounds I got intuitively. It's like, guess what? There's this finger that points outward, judging others, but there's these 3 fingers that point back at you. And I knew that intuitively as someone psychologically minded, that we project what we don't want to own in ourselves onto others. But the 4 questions struck me in a way that changed me just by looking at them. Because I'd always been more rationally minded, like you got to fix and solve and effort and plan and work your issues. And there's never an end to figuring it out. But Katie is like, it's not just about what the thought is, it's about what is the stressful thought and is it true? And she would say, when you question your thoughts, they let go of you. And so it's like, oh, it's just that when I believe my thought, I suffer. And if I can see from more perspectives, I stop believing the thought and then I don't suffer. So, and the reason that changed me is there's this tension between psychological work and spiritual work. And being raised with transcendental meditation was confronting to me sometimes, because I saw a lot of people using transcending to spiritually bypass, meaning I'll just meditate my thoughts away, or I'll meditate that emotion away, or I'll get enlightened and then I won't have to deal with my ego or this interpersonal problem that I'm having. And so that always presented this tension of like, no, you need to work your stuff and own your SHIT. And that's true. And yet that has no end either if you don't, at a certain point, throw it in the fire and allow it to transform and to let go of you so that you're finally free of having to just churn on stuff endlessly.
Do you find the statement, yesterday's breakthrough becomes today's ego trip, to be true?
That's funny. I mean, it can be, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we call that the performance paradox sometimes. Like the very thing, your winning formula that got you to your current level is now the greatest obstacle holding you back from your next level.
That's right.
Because that becomes your bias.
I was talking with Tatiana last night. We were on a walk through the neighborhood and something came up, and it doesn't actually remember. It doesn't really matter what it was. It was just that the comment And what's interesting is you come up now frequently in conversation because I'm like, and then Nathanael said, is that you said something to me at one point where it was maybe I made the comment, they're so judgmental. And then you said something to the effect of, and then there was two. Or something like that, right? Where
now there's two judgmental people.
That's right. There's like, yeah, when somebody's like, man, they're so judgmental, and yet we tend to not see how judgmental we're being about their judgments. It's fascinating, but that comes back to, again, all that perspective that you brought into my life through our sessions. I want to repeat something you just said. When you question your thoughts, they let go of you. Did I catch that right?
That's what Katie says. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Smart woman. For context, let's create some fertile soil here in which we can have an amazing conversation and take this lots of directions. And I want to get into like the breakthroughs I've had working with you and why I think this has been so effective. And I want you to explain why you think it's been so effective for me. And I'll just be the guinea pig for this conversation. But let's give a solid base on what is the work, right? What is the work? What are the 4 questions? What's the easiest way to explain it so that everybody can be on the same page here?
Yeah, first principles. So the work is a way of identifying and questioning the stressful thoughts that you have, the stories you tell yourself. And it's a way of doing self-inquiry, because it's often not what is happening to us that causes our suffering. It's our reaction to what happens to us. It's the story we tell ourselves. So the work deals with asking the fundamental question, is it true? Is the story I'm telling myself really true? And then whether it's true or not, the work is also a kind of shadow work. Because again, when you feel triggered and you're judging someone else, it doesn't just inform you, it affects you. That's the litmus test for shadow. I'm projecting an unconscious part of myself onto you. And so the work is a way of looking in the mirror with those turnarounds and seeing where the suffering is really coming from, which is always what I do to you, not what you do to me. That's out of alignment with my own values.
My experience has been that I always jump on the phone and I'm like, I'm going to convince Nathanael this time that I'm right. And typically it's like same pattern. It's usually about my wife. And I'm like, okay, I'm open-minded, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. And I remember being in Florida, and I might have shared this on the podcast before, I don't remember, but this was profound for me. I was in Florida, and I know this will come back to you instantly the minute I start talking about it. We were on the beach, my wife and I are walking, and she's picking up shells, and I want to have a deep conversation with her. And ultimately, she's not listening, and I want her to listen. That's the context. I get upset. She gets upset. I get on the phone with you. We start having this conversation. And I am convinced that because I asked nicely, that she listened to me, that she should have listened to me. Hence begins the work. She should have, right?
Yeah, and she should.
She should do this. She should do that. And I can think about how many times that shows up in our lives. Like, my kids should do this. My coworkers should do this. So-and-so should treat me this way at a restaurant. There's all these like beliefs. And so you do this judge your neighbor worksheet, right? Where it's called judge your neighbor, but it's really about like, where are you in judgment of something, correct? Is that an easy way of saying it? So I'm judging Tatiana because she's not listening to me. But dude, I walked away from that conversation feeling a shift in my body to where I could then go interact with her on a productive level. I was still, by the way, I was buzzing with a little bit of anger because I think it takes time for that bell to stop ringing,
right?
And your nervous system to calm down. But the idea that then you get into like, instead of she should listen to me, the idea of I should listen to her came up. How is that true? And I was able, and I remember sitting on the bed in this beach house, and you were just letting me sit in the not knowing the answer of how this could be true, right? And you were allowing me to do the work. You're allowing me the space to think. You were holding space for me to grow. And I was not seeing it. I was getting frustrated. I know, I remember that. But ultimately it hit me. Like, I wasn't listening to her. She was telling me with her body language she wanted to pick up shells. And I wasn't listening to her body language. So why are my words more important than her body language? And I start to see all the construct that I put in place, all the ways I've been trying to be righteous in my work and all of this. And dude, then I thought maybe this is a one-off. Maybe Nathanael just got lucky, this one situation. But dude, for the next 3 months, every week I'd jump on the phone with you, I'd have an issue. I would be convicted. I was convicted that I was right. And then you would help me see the opposite. You would help me see other angles. No other form of coaching has helped me to see more angles than this one. No other form of coaching has helped me to see perspective, to catch the blind spot, to see all the different arguments. And it's been very humbling because I thought of myself as a smart person prior to this. I thought of myself as a well-read, well-educated, I'm on trainings constantly. I'm friends with some of the best coaches on the planet. And yet still the perspectives and breakthroughs were profound. Why do you think this work is so different and so impactful? Because you're also highly qualified in many other systems and modalities and forms of healing and coaching. But why this one? Why am I having this experience, Nathanael?
Very well said, first of all. And as Katie would say, the work is checkmate. And why is it checkmate? Because it's a form of inquiry. What does that mean? It means we're inquiring. We're looking within ourselves. And it deals with the projection phenomenon. It's shadow work. So the scratch is on the
shadow
lens.
For a second. Explain shadow.
Well, in the projector metaphor, the scratch is on the lens, but it's projected onto the screen. And we think the scratch is on the screen. And that's what the ego's most basic defense mechanism is. I mean, think about your kids. I know you are, but what am I? The basic ego defense is when something's vulnerable or we're guilty of something, we deny that and then project it onto someone else as a way of feeling safe. The best defense is a good offense. So shadow work is the way of using our emotional triggers to go into inquiry about why does that trigger me? And you come to find time and time again, which is why it's checkmate, that it's something that I'm doing to you or to myself or others that I'm projecting onto you, which is why it bothers me in the first place, because it's out of alignment again with my own values. I'm not walking my talk. It's the gap between my walk and my talk, and I project that onto you. Now, many people would and do take the work and say, oh, well, that's all about personal responsibility. Right. Radical personal responsibility. And this is universal. It's not just called shadow work. It's called self-reflection. It's called confession in religion. It's like take the rocks out of your own shoe. It's called a fearless inventory in 12-step. Like, what am I doing? And can I own that and make amends is the next step. The natural tendency when you find out, wow, what I've been judging you for, I'm guilty of.
Yeah.
That's death to an ego. And then comes, I'm sorry. How can I make it right with you? And that's the pathway of like, once you look in the mirror, it's like a martial art. You get to see your blind spots. That's what you have coaches and game film for. You don't know what you don't know. The eye can't see the eye. So you need the mirror. And then once you're aware of what it is in you, guess what? That's what leadership is. Now you can give out what you wanted to receive from others. You can walk your own talk. And you become a kind of leadership presence, a kind of truth force when you live your own values.
Mm. Do you use the work on yourself?
It is my practice. It's at least that's my my verbal commitment, and it's ideally a daily practice. Yes.
Now there's a worksheet, there's a process. And I think one of the best parts about this is you're not relying on your own. This isn't like, let me dig deep into the wisdom of Nathanael to bestow upon you the brilliance that you need. So much of what you're doing is actually walking me through a spreadsheet. And here's the next question. And then it's like, this is the next question. Now, you are masterfully weaving in what a man who's made it his life work to be in this space does, where you are able to improv in the moment beautifully. And I really want to give you props for that. And I want to give you props for not having such a big ego that it is all about Nathanael. Like, you're able to stick to the sheet and say, let's do the work. Let's let the work do the work, right? And because I think a lot of coaches crave that, like, oh man, Nathanael, if it weren't for you saying that one thing in that one moment, I would never be. Like, we crave that. Of course, we all want to be impactful and have impact in other people, but you're very good about giving credit to the work, to the framework itself, which is why it's repeatable, which is why somebody can do it on their own, and which is why people can take it and apply it in their other areas of their lives.
Well, that's to answer your other question as well, is why is this so powerful?
Yeah.
Is because, as back to Bruce Lee, it's because it deals with self-knowledge. And you have the key with the work to the answers that are within you. I can't give you the answers, and I can offer my perspective. But, it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. 80% of it's holding space so that you can drop into your own inner wisdom. David Lynch, the filmmaker, says the big fish are deeper in the ocean. So the work is meditation too, in that sense. It's contemplation. So it's learning to drop into your own inner wisdom.
I'm usually it's like exhausted after our session.
It's a mental workout. Yeah. They don't call it the work for nothing. And you end up, when you see in the mirror, again, it's not so there are those of us who like to blame ourselves for everything, and there are those of us who like to blame other people. And when we look in that mirror, some people would think, like, take the thought that you had, and it's like, she doesn't listen to me. Well, is it true? First of all, can you absolutely know that's true? And how do you feel? How do you react when you believe that thought in that situation? That's the whole stressful reaction that thought creates, which is the interesting part about the work. It's like the Matrix. It's like getting to see our own programming. Because we get triggered and we think the emotion happens first. But emotions are just unconscious thoughts. And they have us. We don't have them, which is why we react. So it makes the whole thing conscious. It puts an X-ray on it so that you can also look at, well, who would you be without the thought? You're telling yourself this story. What if it isn't true? And that's the mindset shift that happens from reacting to responding. So you always end up with more perspectives when you do the work. You always end up with more options. And certainly once you start to do the turnarounds and you see in the mirror, so she should listen to me. It could be that, I should listen to her. Maybe I wasn't listening to her. And then the other turnaround is I should listen to myself.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like, I'm not giving myself the chance to speak. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle. It's a little different. You can try to figure it out with your head, but when you do the work, you come into these moments of aha, that's why it's so powerful.
One of our big breakthroughs was, you remember the one about the alarm clock or the electrical equipment in the internet? There was an internet, electrical equipment, plugs, all this stuff. And my wife wanted me to remove some of this because she thought it was affecting our son. And it was very triggering for me because I was like, she should be more considerate. She should be more compassionate, right? There was all this she should again. And one of the big breakthroughs for me on that one, Nathanael, was that I should be more compassionate to myself. that was the turnaround for me. That was the big breakthrough, is I realized how hard on myself I am. And then when she just touches me in like the lightest of ways, I can react, like I can blow up, because I'm already so difficult on myself. I'm so tough on myself.
Right.
So where I'm trying to get her to be nicer so that I don't explode, the real work was that I needed to be more compassionate for myself, so that even if she did say something, I wouldn't be like a balloon ready to pop, where the tiniest little touch sends me over the edge.
Yeah, I need her to be nicer so that she doesn't hold up the mirror up to how mean I am to myself.
That's right. Yeah.
And that goes into what Katie calls the prescription for happiness.
Yeah.
What I want or should or need you to give me, it's like you write the prescription for them with the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, but then you take the prescription, which is where healing comes from. It's like, exactly. Oh yeah, they weren't giving me compassion. Well, who else in your life didn't give you compassion? Like, how far back does that go as a pattern? And who's going to be the one to end the pattern? Wow, if I could learn to give me compassion and ask for it when I need it from others, maybe we'd be getting somewhere. Otherwise, it's like, where does it end? Everyone's pointing the finger. There's no leaders. Like, you should give me compassion. I'm not very compassionate right now. Yeah. But you really should consider that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yes. One of my thoughts that showed up as you're talking is that for a guy like me who wants to be in control, that this work is very fitting for that, because I get to control me. I get to control my habits and my behaviors, and I get to control in many ways. Like, that's a new belief. I want that belief. I'm going to have that belief, versus me trying to change my wife or my kids or whoever that's bothering me. So for a guy who wants to be in control, I feel like I have a lot more control when it's me that has to make the change, and not from a place of like heroing my way through everything, right? Or being a rescuer.
Super important distinction, yeah.
Through everything. Like, I'm going to shoulder mine and yours and everybody else's, and I'm going to take all the responsibility, including yours, but yet just take my responsibility. Like, one of the thoughts that comes up all the time is, whose business is that? And I'm like, that's my business. Tell us about that. Whose business is this?
I think that is a great kind of summary statement about what the work is. So Katie would say there's three kinds of business: mine, yours, and God's, or the God of your understanding. So for example, whose business is it whether you disrespect me? That's your business. You have control of that. Whose business is it whether I disrespect me or you or other people? That's what I have control of. That's my business. And whose business is it whether it snows in Austin in April? Well, none of us have control of that. So it's out of our business. And to notice when you're feeling stressed, whose business you're in.
Right.
And it's a way of giving away power. And also getting in other people's business in the sense of, I need to fix them in order for me to be happy. And I think it's worth like pausing on those mindsets, because again, if you have the work and you look in the mirror, sometimes the thing you need to be responsible for is to stop rescuing or being so responsible for everyone else. And that's a little counterintuitive for people. Like you just said, that we're typically in the victim mindset, victim position when life is happening to us. And when we relate to other people, we're either persecuting, which is back to blame and shoulding, or actually we're doing the opposite. We're in the rescuer mode, the hero, and we're blaming ourselves for everything, which means we don't hold anyone accountable or set any boundaries. And that's what you see so often showing up in the work. That's what the mirror is really being held up to. It's one of those kinds of patterns. And we sometimes are in these dynamics for decades and we don't know it. We often tell this story, to speak to the drama triangle for a minute, about a father, since this will fit to your your audience, who comes home from work. His son hasn't taken out the trash. So what did he do to his son? What mindset is he in the drama triangle?
Persecutor.
So he persecutes his son. What does son do?
Maybe goes into victim mode.
Goes into all the excuses, and then son goes to mom. What does mom do?
Rescuer.
Rescues the son. And what does the mom do to the dad?
Persecutes.
Why are you so hard on him? You know he had extra homework today. What does the dad do?
He turns into a victim.
Yep. And then takes out the trash for his son.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then the cycle continues.
That's right.
And to bring awareness to that, oh my gosh, what's the judgment he would have had? And the work could be the kind of stopgap, the moment of awareness to look into what story am I telling myself in this moment? And is it true? And that can dismantle, like Eckhart Tolle says, in a single moment of presence or awareness, you're transcending thousands of years of human conditioning. And isn't that so?
Yeah, man. Well, this interview is just like our coaching sessions. Always giving me things to think about, man. I just had to pause. And
yeah, thank you for bringing the examples too and grounding it.
Yeah, this is fun, man. There's so much to this. Let's zoom out again real quick, because it's easy to get in the weeds with this, and it's easy for somebody to be like, wait, my head's spinning. I'm kind of lost. Let's go back to the basic for a moment. There are 4 steps to the work. Is that that's safe to say, right? There's 4 questions.
Well, 4 questions, actually 4 parts. Let's talk about it in terms of 4 parts, because people who are facilitators of the work will say, well, it's 4 questions and turnarounds.
Exactly.
There's 2 additional parts actually that I like to speak to, so that there's an action component that follows the inquiry, which is
let's get into that framework piece again, so that people can almost visualize what we're talking about and lay that over top of all of these conversations.
That's great. So I think at the highest level, if you're choosing to take out the work or inquiry as a toolkit, it's something that is triggering you emotionally. It affects you. It doesn't just inform you. If it's just a problem to solve, that's the coaching toolkit.
That's when to use this work.
Yeah, a business meeting, you debate something, discuss something. But
that's why this has still been so powerful, Nathanael, because so much shit triggers me.
Yeah. Well, we're taught not to judge, but
it's
what we do best is judge all the time inside our own heads.
That's right.
So it gives us a chance to work with that and transform it through inquiry. And the 4 questions are the way you do the work. But the first thing is capturing the thoughts. The Judge Your Neighbor worksheet is one way to capture your stressful thoughts and judgments in a situation where you felt triggered. And if it's not about another person, if it's about an event or yourself, then you can make a list of beliefs. And those could be self-judgments. Those could be, if this happens, then something else bad happens. So these are limiting beliefs as well that we can capture. So that's the full step 1, capturing the beliefs. And that's a meditation too, because again, we feel the emotion, but why? And we do so much rationalizing and kind of talk therapyizing and telling our story, but it's being able to connect the thought to the emotion, so that you're writing down the stressful thought. She doesn't care about me. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I want them to respect me. Those are stressful thoughts. Those are beliefs. Then you do the work on those thoughts, which is 4 questions. Is it true? And really meditating in that and letting it just be a yes or no, because you're testing to see if you still believe it. And if it feels true, it's a yes. I'm still believing it's true in that moment. And then, so is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? Which is kind of like, are you sure? Look again, go deeper. And then how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? This is emotions, reactions. How do you treat the other person? How do you treat yourself? What addictions or distractions kick in when you feel those emotions? Where are those emotions in your body? So all of, you've seen those virtual reality goggles that people put on, of like you're walking on a tightrope, like one of those with one of those things that keeps you balanced. And then your mind thinks it's real. And you see people like freaking out or, yelling even, because it's like being in the Matrix. The mind thinks it's real. So that's question 3, is just witnessing how your mind reacts when you believe that thought is true. And sometimes if you look, like, where does that thought come from? When's the first time I can remember believing that thought? What will bubble up are memories from the past, which is another definition of projection. I'm not responding to this moment when I'm judging it. I'm actually projecting something from my past on top of it. Like you change the name of the person you write the worksheet to your dad, and suddenly the worksheet makes sense. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is all my father stuff or mother stuff or grandfather stuff, or the time in school when I was bullied. And that trauma basically is what I'm projecting it onto this situation or transferring. So you look at that. And then question 4, who would you be without the thought? How would you feel if that story wasn't true? How would you respond skillfully as a creator, as a coach, as a challenger? More compassionate, more awareness, more patience, maybe. What options are available if that's
it's such a great question. Last night on our walk, I said that to Tatiana. I said, who would you be without that thought? She got to be so light. I would be so free. I would be so right. And I felt that so many times. It's just knowing who would you be if you just chose not to believe that thought. There's a lot of breakthrough that happens right there in that moment.
Like, and it's not about going into denial. It's not about pretending like it isn't happening. It's just, who are you without the reaction?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a Zen koan. It's like there's pain and then there's suffering. And the suffering always comes from my reaction to what's happening. Right. Yeah.
Yep. That's
so anyway, to keep it a higher level, then the turnarounds come. So 4 questions, turnarounds, which let's take a thought, he doesn't care about me. And you turn that around into different perspectives. And the idea is, when you're believing a thought, you're stuck that it's true. So this is where you came in about perspective. What if that's not the only thing that's true?
Exactly.
So you do like this mental yoga pose of like, he does care about me. Can I give actual data points, examples for why that could be true? And then my mind starts to open. It's like a wedge in the door. Okay, it could be that he does care about me. And then you turn it around. I don't care about him. Aha, now I know why it bothers me, because I'm the one not caring about him in that moment. And often in the very moment I'm believing it about him, I'm the one who's not caring about him.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the turnaround to the self. So opposite, other, self. I don't care about me in that moment. And in a codependent dynamic, there could be a lot of reasons why I'm not caring about me. Like if I stay in an abusive relationship, it's like fool me once, fool me twice. Well, now I'm not caring about me. When I don't treat me like someone who's worthy of respect, when I stay in something that doesn't work for me, when I don't honor my boundaries, when I don't speak up, when I don't express what I'm feeling or what I need. So that's where that can go. And again, when you turn that mirror around and you have the mea culpa moment of, I'm actually guilty of what I'm judging you for. It's ego death. Right. The end of the world as we know it. I'm sorry is transformation. Yeah. What can I do to make it right? So that's the amends that follows. And then comes the living turnaround. How can I live my turnarounds that I wanted you to? And that's kind of the action or the practice that follows the work.
I want her to be more compassionate to me. And yet I need to be more compassionate to me. My living turnaround right here, man. Like
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I've printed it, right? Yeah. So I want me to stop blaming me. I want me to stop blaming others. I will say to myself or to her, I know you aren't trying to hurt anybody. I know you're trying to help. I know you're a good dad, mom. I will use I statements to express my emotions. I will ask, can we work together to find a solution that is healthy? I'd be happy to do that. The interesting thing is that language, can we work together to find a solution that's healthy, was like, you got me to see, you helped me see, you helped myself come to the realization that what I wanted her to say, you're like, what do you want her to say? I'm like, I don't know. I just want it to be different than what it was. But if you can't figure out what you want her to say to you, how is she supposed to figure out?
How would you even know if she did it?
How would you even know if she got it right when you can't say what you want her to say to you? So you got me to think about this. And then I said, I want her to say, can we work together to find a solution that's healthy? But then I realized that that's what I should be saying. Like, I didn't have the language I wanted her. So I was getting angry at her because she wasn't doing the thing that was going to get me out of my own pain, because I wasn't willing to do the work myself. It's crazy.
And that's so powerful, what you just read and what your commentary was, because any one of those is a profound insight. Like, if someone's blaming me, he blames me, she blames me. What am I seeing in the mirror? I'm seeing my own harsh inner critic. So it actually wouldn't make me feel better if she stopped, but I continued.
Yeah.
So to be the change, like, oh, I should stop blaming me and her. That's enough work to do. And then, like Jesus said, like, remove it from your own eye before you point it out in your brother's eye. And then you can be more responsive in that situation, basically. But the second point that you just made is, like, we make all these statements and judgments in general about how we want things to be, but we don't even know how to ask specifically for what we want, such that we wouldn't even know if we got it. And that's a product of, like, the mantra there is to be specific. So the living turnaround exercise is also shadow work, because what we do is we say, how would you know that they were respecting you?
Right.
Make your list specifically. Again, that's the prescription for happiness. How do you feel when you walk your talk, when you're able to give what you wanted to receive?
Do you think there's a way, Nathanael? I know we talked about this even weeks and months before recording this, about maybe doing some coaching together live, like actually having you coach me through something. And I'd be very willing to do that. I'm wondering if it's possible. Can we run through a scenario where somebody could see almost a trailer of what the work looks like, but in a real situation, without taking a deep dive, but like a 5-minute overview of, like, here's a scenario, let's talk through it very quickly, but without, like, multiple turnarounds and sitting in meditation, just give them a preview. Because I'm just really thinking that somebody out there is like, I get it. Like, this Nathanael said some really cool shit. John sounds like he's had some breakthroughs. I'm not quite sure what I would be signing up for if I take on the work.
Right.
Can we try that? Are you game for, is it possible
to do that live now?
Yeah, like, just do like a 5-minute. I'll give you a scenario and we just step people through.
Yeah. Well, and we'll keep it high level to, like, how you react can be very brief.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just go through, and if you see me getting stuck, then you can kind of nudge me along. But just let's go for a 5-minute window here. And the scenario that I'll give you is a real one that I think guys will relate to, and I'll bring it up as with my son, my 6-year-old son, who we give them 30 minutes of screen time each day after 3 p.m. And assuming they haven't done something to lose that throughout the course of the day. My 6-year-old son's been waking up every day and he wants to talk to me about, like, he's trying to finagle, like, getting screens earlier in the day. And I got so triggered the other day that I was, like, really angry. And I was like, Ocean, stop asking me about screens. Stop it, right? You ask me and I want him to be persistent. I want him to learn these things. But so my statement is, he should not ask me about screens in the morning. That's the triggering thing for me. And I'm like, he should know not to ask me about screens. And he keeps asking me, and it's triggering me.
So let's capture that. That's the first step. Beautiful. So the
Yep.
situation is he keeps asking you for screens in the morning. And let's narrow it down to that time and location. So
Yep.
the specific trigger, like if you're watching the film, where do you hit the pause button? When you
Yep.
what does he say or do?
This is this morning, 7 a.m. And he's trying to talk me into screens. And I don't remember, he mumbles in his presentation because he's kind of making stuff up as he goes along. But he's basically like, can I do screens? That's the basic question he's getting.
That's the trigger. He's like,
yes,
Dad, can I do screens? Can I do the screen? Okay, so now what's the emotion that you feel?
Oh, no, here's the actual trigger.
Okay.
He'll say, can I do screens? And I said, no, buddy, you can't. And then he said, you lied to me. That was what really triggered me. Because then he starts like, well, you said, and he tries to
So let's pause it there for a moment.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, this is now we're meditating on a moment in time. And John just went a little deeper and was like, aha, there's where the trigger is.
Yeah.
So now we're in context with you.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, it's like, can you see John with his son? And his son saying that to him? If you can do that, you can do the work.
Yeah.
So Dad, he lied to me.
Yeah.
So now what emotion at him?
I'm frustrated.
So I'm frustrated at him because he did something to you in that. What's the judgment? He blank me.
Yeah, he judged me. He called me a liar. That's what it was. He called me a liar.
Okay. He called me a liar. Is it true? Now here's what's tricky. Is it a fact that he called you a liar?
Yes.
So then
why said you lied to me.
So why does that bother you? So let's not question the fact, because that'll be confusing. What does it mean that he was doing to you?
It hurts because I value integrity with him specifically, and that my word matters. I want to speak very clearly. So that really hurts because that's the thing I don't want more than anything. It's for my son to think that I'm pulling a fast one on him.
Okay. So then what's the judgment? He doesn't respect me.
Mm-hmm.
Or you tell me, what is it?
He thinks I'm a liar.
He thinks I'm a liar.
That's it.
Okay. So I invite you to hold that moment in time where he says, you lied to me.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, he thinks you're a liar. Is it true?
In that moment or in general?
Yeah, right in that moment, meditating on that moment.
No.
And how do you react? How did you feel when you believed the thought, my son thinks I'm a liar?
Frustrated, angry, hurt.
And how did you treat him? How did you react?
My energy shifted. I probably raised my voice a notch. I got stern. I got defensive. I got short. I got quick with him. I didn't want to be around him.
And what mindset are you in? You do that?
Probably victim.
Victim.
Probably feeling like a victim, like I'm a victim of his attack.
And you see him as the persecutor.
I'm also as a persecutor. Yeah, I mean, like
then you become, yeah.
And I become the persecutor. He was the persecutor, and then I flipped it and I became the persecutor. Yeah. I wanted to control him and make him wrong for saying what he was saying.
And that's the defensive part again.
Yes. And for the record, by the way, you helped me with the comment, like, being defensive is the first act of war, I think is what you said.
Katie's quote again, defense is the first act of war.
Yeah, defense is that's been huge for me. Huge.
So you're in defense in that moment.
Correct. Which I've noticed there's a pattern.
So now I invite you to close your eyes again.
Yeah.
Same situation. And who would you be without the thought, my son thinks I lied to him?
Yeah, just calm, present, going about my morning, solid, emotionally stable, happy.
And what do you say or do with him in that moment without that story?
Just hug him. Just listen to him. Just acknowledge his feelings.
Yeah, he wants his screen time. Of course. Right. So now, yeah, how are you seeing him? Just want to sit with that one more moment.
Just as a, yeah, I mean, this is the beauty is, right? I just see him as like a kid who's passionate about these screens because they're so cool, you know, like he's just pumped. He's 6. He can't even contain himself. Can't bite his tongue, you know, just can't keep the words in. Just would do anything to get those screens because he loves them so much. He's just in love. He's just passionate. I'm standing in his way.
Yeah, he's coming after you. It's some combination of funny and cute.
Yeah.
Without the story.
That's right.
And no, sweetheart, you don't get to have your screen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I've been learning, Nathanael, is like how to communicate that boundary calmly, you know, because if you can recognize that you're getting triggered, if you can, and the practice is like, if I can do this when I'm calm, I can do this in the game. I remember, maybe I shared this with you, but my buddy, Tim, we were talking about volleyball. And I do think I've talked about this before, but it's like, I told him, I said, I should be getting better at volleyball, right? I should be getting better. We play every weekend. And he explained to me, he said, you need to go back and slow everything down and do it at home. Do the drills at home when you're not in a game, and you practice the basics at a slow speed. And then you slowly get faster and faster and faster, and you get to practice speed. Then you get to game time speed. And then what you do is when you actually go play the game, you are not, what do they say? Rising to the occasion, but falling to the level of your training.
Yeah,
you don't
right.
rise to the occasion, but you fall to the level of your training. And it's like, that's what happens with parenting. We think we're just going to, like, because we're brilliant men, we're going to rise to the occasion. But oftentimes it's like, we need to train for these moments as in fatherhood, just like anything else, of how we will react. And we need to practice it and rehearse it. And you know, I've even done role playing, right? Like you say this, I say that, right? Mm-hmm. And then so you do it enough times to where then it starts to be like, oh, I just hit the volleyball because I've done that drill so many times outside the game that in game time, it's now coming more naturally to me.
Exactly. The place we get triggered and react is our blind spot.
That's right.
That's where we haven't practiced. Or we've practiced something unhealthy for years. And you got to, just like a physical practice, you have to change the habit through practice. And that's exactly what we're doing now. We're rewiring the reaction with a conscious response.
Guys, I want you to imagine what we just did, but
and by the way, we didn't do the turnarounds.
Do you want to do it?
I think so.
All right, let's do it.
That's the fun part.
All right, let's do it.
I hate to miss that.
No, hey guys, you're seeing my coach in action right now. He's like, I'm not going to let you off the hook.
Yeah, that was, we got halfway. So.
All right, let's go. Let's finish it up.
Okay. So the belief, he thinks I'm a liar, turned around.
I think I'm a liar.
Okay. So in that moment, what's an example? Why would that be as true? for sure.
I question sometimes how good of a job I'm doing explaining the rules. Like if he says, well, you said this, I go, did I? Was there some version of that? So I do question sometimes whether or not unintentionally I created a false expectation because of something I said. And I'm sure that's possible. I don't remember exactly where that was here, but I think that's possible.
So that's one example. So I think I'm a liar. What else?
Can we do the other two turnarounds?
Well, I have one then in case you'd like
go
to
ahead.
hear it.
Yeah, this is okay. Good. Yeah, tell me.
Because now we're back to that thing about blaming.
Mm-hmm.
So my son says it, and I go into blame and shame of I did something wrong. And then I have to defend it. And I call myself a liar. It's like he's how old?
6.
Right. So he said it, but who believed it?
Me.
Yeah. So it's like he's 6, but he's right about me.
Yeah.
I believed it. I called me that when I react that way. So other turnaround to your point and keeping it moving. What's another turnaround? He thinks I'm a liar.
He thinks he's a liar.
Well, that would be his business. How about he doesn't think?
He's not a liar.
He doesn't.
He doesn't think I'm a liar.
He doesn't think I'm a liar. Yes.
Right. He doesn't think I'm a liar. Yeah, I think that there's an element of truth to the fact that he doesn't really believe that. He's just saying that to get something.
He just wants his screen time.
He's just like, I'm going to grab at anything here. Right.
It's not so personal.
Right.
And then the last turnaround to the other, I think he's.
Right. I think he's a liar.
So where would that be true?
Hold on. Let me get out my long list. No, I think in that moment, I think he's lying about me being a liar.
That's right? The defense. The moment I go into defensiveness, it's like, no, I'm not. What a liar. You're a liar.
Right.
And then I'm in that act of war, the first act of war. Easier said than done, but that's what that's the thing I'm now aware of. Oh, when someone's accusing me of something, I go into defending it. And who knows what I accuse them of in the process. Can I take care of that? And why is it important that I take care of that? Because I wanted them to.
Yeah. In the very moment that I'm sad that he's calling me a liar, I'm immediately thinking, no, you're the liar. And I'm doing the very act that I'm upset that he's doing to me. That's what's been amazing about this for me, is how often I do that and I don't even see it. Like I'm too busy being like, you call me a liar and you're wrong. And I'm like, you're a liar.
And then you have 2 6-year-olds or whatever it is.
You have 2 6-year-olds in the room. Exactly.
And it's innocent is the point. We forgive us. We don't know what we do. We're believers. We react when we believe our thoughts. Yeah. That's the whole point of this. If you can see the thought that's in the space between the stimulus and the reaction, then you can unhook from it. Otherwise, you're triggered and cause and effect. You react. So it's like a little being gentle with ourselves when we catch on to these things. It's okay. And with awareness comes choice. That's why it's so intimately tied up into leadership. Otherwise, it's everyone pointing the finger. Couldn't the world use a little bit of this right now? Whatever side you think you're on, the only way to cut through polarity is to pick up the mirror. That's why what the world needs now is shadow work. It needs the mirror, it needs the work, it needs self-knowledge. And then we have leaders. Let me be the one who changes. Let me walk my talk. And then let me consider myself with you.
Right.
The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. As Gloria Steinem said.
Anything else on this, Nathanael, to wrap this piece?
Just that the term shadow work comes from Carl Jung. So the notion of the shadow as the unconscious and the journey into the underworld in mythology, that is the hero's journey. That's what Joseph Campbell was all about, which then Star Wars and The Matrix and these stories of transformation. When a hero goes on a journey, you're really journeying into your own unconscious. The enemy is a mirror for something in you. It's the Luke, I am your father moment. There's these funny old videos of people showing their kids those moments in Star Wars for the first time. And just it's like such a shocker to these kids that have somehow never seen Star Wars. But, oh my God, the thing I made an enemy is somehow intimately connected to me. That's what this work is really about. Like, we're each the hero or heroine in our own story. And all things change when we do. It's transformation.
All things change when we do.
More quotes, yeah.
Wow. Nathanael, this has been awesome, dude. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. It was.
I'm so glad you put us on the mat with it too, and we did the work.
Dude, this is great. And I really want to thank you in front of my friends here that are part of this podcast. Everybody out there listening, thank you for being part of the Front Row Dad community. Those that are part of the Brotherhood officially, thank you. And I think I'm going to bet this is not the last time you'll hear from Nathanael in the Front Row Dad Brotherhood. Thank you for the work that you're doing with me one-to-one, Nathanael. If people wanted to connect with you, work with you, learn more about your organization and how you might be able to serve them individually or with their companies, I know you do a lot of work with executives. Where do we point them?
Yeah, and thank you too, first of all, for having me here. It is my purpose and passion and calling to bring the work, shadow work, to the world, and especially to men. I feel like we need to start some kind of men at work thing going. But if you want to find me and get in touch, I'm on all the social media as an individual. And the business stuff would be thepalaistra.com, PALAESTRA. That's Palaistra Leadership. You could just Google that as well, and get in touch through the website. We also have an awakening leadership brand, which will be a topic for another conversation. But if you're into the psychedelic renaissance and conscious leadership in that way, then you can look us up that way as well.
Excellent. Nathanael, thank you, my friend. I can't say enough good things about your work, dude. I sing your praises, and I also want to give props and thanks to Darius. Again, I've mentioned Darius.
Yeah, Darius.
Sitting on my core values because of Darius. Look at that. Front Row Dad core values. I'm holding everybody watching YouTube or listening on the podcast. The Darius has been huge, and he's the one that we around a walk, on a walk downtown Austin. He was like talking about finding a coach. And he said, you've got to meet my buddy, Nathanael. He is a ninja. and he was not lying, man. You delivered big for me and my family. I am showing up more present, less triggered. And I've realized that in many ways that I can be a thermostat in my house where I used to be a thermometer. I used to react to all the stuff. And I would read that and reflect that. And now I'm walking in as the thermostat, and I'm deciding like where I want to set the temperature. And then I'm noticing with that certainty, with that solid state of emotional intelligence that I walk away with from our conversations, this awareness, and not from a bragging place of like, I've somehow been enlightened and I'm not affected by anything anymore. Like, I got plenty of work to do. I am super like flawed as a man, and I will be on this journey for a very long time until I take my last breath. But I do want to say that I am better. That is for certain. It is measurable. My wife has commented about it. She has literally said, I said, why are you different? I said, things are going so well. What is it about your feeling? You feel great, like your energy is bright and light. And here's her response. She said this to me literally a couple nights ago. She said, it's you. She said, I'm reacting to your energy. She goes, I think when you're grounded and loving and calm and present and all that, she goes, I just feed off that energy from you. And she says, I think something about being like creating this safe place for her to relax, because I'm relaxed. And so I think it is something that I'm taking very seriously as the father, the husband, the man, the human, to just say, I want to do my part here. And I know it's a big team effort, but I've got a role to play, and I'm going to own that. So you've been big for me, man.
You certainly are doing your part, John. You've been doing your work, and the results show. So I'm really pleased to hear that you've continued to be seen as showing up differently by the people who matter to you most in your life. And thank you for letting me, giving me the privilege of getting to do this work. We're all just waking up from the dream of unconsciousness. And this is one of the best ways I know how to do it. So thank you.
I keep wanting to not show up for our calls. I'm like, oh, this is going to be hard. I got to come up with an excuse to get out of this. But then every time we do it, it's great. So thank you, man. I appreciate it. I look forward to more. Guys, go check out Nathanael. We'll link up everything in the show notes. Also, if you need us, hit us up, info@frontrowdads.com. We can connect you with Nathanael directly.
And the work is always free at thework.com. I should mention Byron Katie and the Work, tons of videos, worksheets. There's even a helpline for the week for the work that's free. They'll facilitate you about 20, 30 minutes at a time. So if you're curious about inquiry, jump in with both feet at thework.com.
All right. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.